Today we're talking to buyer's agent and TV property presenter Chris Gray about whether buyers in a hot market should hold off or act quickly. Chris, thanks for joining us. What's your thoughts on this topic?
So look, I think the main thing is it depends what you think is going to happen in the future. So obviously if you think it's going to be a little blip and that the market's not going to rise forever, then sure, hold off. It's probably the right thing to do. But I think most people in this market think that it's going to be reasonably going on for maybe 2 or 3 years. So the whole idea is say property is going from 700 up towards 900, even if now you're paying say 725 and it's the first couple of months of the rise, if there's still another few years left, then it's still going to be cheaper in the long run. So I think a lot of the bubble talk in the media is it's generally done by 3 different people. So quite often it's either the share guys, and the share guys are always going to slam property and always say, oh, it's a bubble and you should buy shares instead, they're a lot safer, even though they went down 50% in the GFC. Then I think there's the media people, so even people like me and people like you, that we need stories, and so it's a news story, it's something else to talk about. And then I think the third person that is going to push it is people like that do the house and the land, the developers, because they're always battling the government to say we want reduced costs of putting in energy and land and sewage and all that kind of stuff. House prices are too expensive, so if you want to make it more affordable, you've got to reduce the cost of us setting up land. So I think there's lots of people that have got vested interests saying that Australia's too expensive or there's a bubble. But I think most of the property people like Residex, RP Data, Australian Property Monitors, SQM Research, pretty much all those guys say it's a normal market. And actually even Glenn Stevens, I think, came out the other day from the head of the RBA, and he said this is a normal market. He doesn't think it's a boom.
Okay, well, if for some reason a buyer does feel that they need to act quickly, in your opinion, what things should they consider to avoid rushing into the wrong deal?
Yeah, so it all comes down to research to start with. You've really got to know exactly what you're buying, where you're buying it. So say whether you're buying a home or investment, is then start thinking about what are the must-haves. So what are the essential things like car parking that no matter what the price I've got to have, and what are the negotiable things like I might like a balcony, that might be nice, or north facing. So work out those kind of things, because now's the time in the market that you're not going to get the perfect property. If you bought in the GFC, you've got time to shop around. Now you haven't. As usual, you want to get pre-approved for finance. You need to be able to hit things straight away, and there's no point wasting time looking at 700 grand properties if you can only afford 300 or 400. You then really need to know the prices. So what I used to do when I was buying in the early days was get an Excel sheet and track every single property I saw, write down what the agents reckon that the price is, and then go to the auctions and see how much it actually sold for by auction and see how many people are actually bidding. Because what you really want to work out is what is real value, and then what are the properties that are selling for 50 or 100 grand over. Because we just buy 2 bidders all the time, and we buy hundreds of them, literally year on year, but we know straight away that we can still buy stuff on bank valuation, whereas other properties are selling over 100 grand more. So you just need to be steady and to wait. The next thing you need to do is really build the relationship with the real estate agents. They're the difference between buying and not buying. So if you're not getting on with them, they're not tipping you into properties before they come on the market, it's going to make it very, very hard when you're paying retail, you're paying with all the other clients. The next thing is you've got to act really, really fast. So we've bought properties within 3 or 4 hours before, and we're still getting our inspections. So we get valuation reports every time we buy, building inspection, strata, and if you're buying a house, you need a pest inspection. So just because it's a hot market, don't take the risk and not buy those reports. And even if you've got to buy 3 or 4 sets of those reports for 4 or 5 grand, it's better to spend 5 grand on checking out 4 properties than it is to buy the first one and pay 100 over. I guess, I mean, this is a bit of a plug, so it's a bit of a vested interest. This last point is obviously think about using a buyer's agent, because a lot of people in the normal market think, why would I pay 10 or 20 grand on a buyer's agent? Whereas in this market, it's black and white. If you're going to pay 50 or 100 grand more at auction, or you can pay a buyer's agent 10 or 20 grand, sure, it's an extra cost and it's not tax deductible until you sell, but it's going to save you money. So sometimes you just buy the expertise if you haven't got the relationship.
Okay, so your opinion then is, no doubt, we are in a hot market right now?
Sure, it's hot, and I'd say it's hotter than warm. It's not bubbling, it's not overheated, it's not a bubble, but sure, it's a pretty strong market. And again, it does depend where you are in Australia, and it does depend on the price point. So in a city, kind of $5 to $1 million is pretty hot. $1 million over, it really depends on what kind of things you're buying, and the rural stuff again, or the outskirts, it just depends what area you're buying in.
Okay, I think, Chris, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us today.
My pleasure. Go
Much
out and
appreciated.
just go and you've got to jump in, go and do something.
Thank you very much.